Hello everyone, this is Anna speaking from SavvyCat Realty. As you know, I'm the owner of SavvyCat Realty. For those of you who don't know, SavvyCat Realty is a relocation and real estate advisory and buyer agency in Portugal. And we work in an ethical and technical way. We do a lot of things a lot of agents don't do, like property verification, and do support doing location advisory throughout the whole country. We also support with visas. We have a lawyer on payroll. We work with engineers and architects. So if this sounds like something you need, do give us a shout out or contact us to contact@savvycatrealty.com. So today I'm going to do a video about Porto. This has been long overdue because, as some of you know, I actually spend a lot of time in Porto, and I've lived in Porto. It's probably the city I lived the longest in. As many of you know, I am kind of a nomad and I keep going up and down the country. But I did live a very long time in Porto, and I also own property there. So I know the city very well, and I've been postponing doing the video about Porto because it is just so many things to talk about, and there's so many different neighborhoods with different price points and different lifestyles that I didn't know exactly how to structure it. In the end, I've decided to do multiple videos. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the center of Porto and the immediate surroundings. And then I'm going to talk to the more, it's not outskirts, but the other neighborhoods of Porto. And then I'm going to do another video about Gaia, and another video about the Matosinhos side, and another video about the interior side. So I'm going to do 4 to 5 videos about the Porto area. Probably Lisbon will be done in the same way. I'm going to work on Lisbon in the end of this month. So I hope that you enjoy this, and do let me know your feedback. So today, like I said, I will be talking about the center of Porto. And in the center of Porto, I mean the historical center and the immediate surroundings like Bonfim, Campanha, Fontainhas, Lapa, Marquês, Massarelos, and Alfândega. And as you can notice, I have kind of a guideline here so I don't forget anything. So let's start with the actual historical center. So the actual historical center is where you have all kinds of different cultural events and a lot of restaurants and stores and so on. And it's a very, very pleasant location and also a very touristic location. So in the center of Porto, we are talking about Santa Catarina being one of the main buzzing streets in Porto historical area. Then you also have Jardim de São Lázaro in the surrounding plazas, and near to the Faculty of Fine Arts, and all that area down until Ribeirinha, you know, São Bento, ALIADOS. These are the kind of locations that I'm referring to when I mentioned the historical center of Porto. As most of you probably know, Porto has a very distinct architectural style that is quite lovely. But to be honest, Porto was falling apart 10 years ago. Back when I was in high school, most of the beautiful buildings of the Porto Historical Center were completely falling apart. I even had, at the time, these buildings would go for something like 60, 70, sometimes 100K. I do know of someone who bought a building in Rua Mouzinho da Silveira, so that's the street that goes from São Bento until the square where, I can't remember well, the street that goes down from São Bento, so very, very center. And she bought it for about 70K, a 3-story building. It wasn't a very large building, but as you know, those buildings now go for at least 500K. So you can, I'm telling you this so you understand how fast the inflation was. especially on the last few years. At the moment, in the historical center, we are talking about prices being 4K normal, 4.5. Some areas are even pushing it to the 5, although I find that a bit overpricing. I already know of people who bought apartments, of course this is new construction and renovation, for 5.3K per square meter. I find this to be fairly unsustainable. It is too high, especially from a local perspective, because our salaries didn't go up. Our economy is more stimulated, sure, but locals cannot afford this in any way. So yes, it's important to have this kind of rehabilitation. It actually was very good for the city to have this foreign interest, because it grew a lot and the economy is way better now. Back 10 years ago, you would have a lot more criminality rate, and Porto was known to be a dangerous city. Right now, Porto is a very safe city. There's only very few neighborhoods that are a bit trickier, but they are not in the center at all anymore. So the truth is, Porto was rehabilitated by foreign investment. Portuguese people were not rehabilitating the city. So it is a two-way street. It has good things and it has bad things. I do think it's important to do things in a sustainable way, and to, yes, it's normal that the prices rise, but let's try and not make them rise too fast. I do believe that Porto still has room to grow, but let's try and not make that growth this fast. So that's one of the reasons why I created SavvyCat, to try and make the real estate purchases by foreigners more sustainable, so they don't end up overpaying because they don't know the market well, and because the market here in Portugal is not very regulated. I'm not going to go into detail about that. I have other videos talking about that. I also have a blog post on my website, savvycatrealty.com, detailing how the market operates here, in case you are curious. So now I'm going to talk about the actual city and lifestyle of Porto. Porto is honestly the city that I enjoy living the most when it comes to big cities. I'm actually not a very big city person. I don't like traffic too much, and I prefer to have a certain quiet. I don't like too many people and things around me. However, when it comes to big cities, I really like Porto for two reasons. One, it is very culturally active. It is a beautiful city, and people here in Porto are very welcoming and very community given. So one of the things that I noticed when comparing Porto to Lisbon is that in Lisbon it's very much the typical big city where everyone is in a hurry to get somewhere and they have very busy schedules, while in Porto people are more relaxed and are more given in the way that they will stop in the street to help you. And if you have a dinner or you are invited to someone's home in Porto, you will likely be there for a lot of hours and have a lot of conversations and a lot of beer or port wine and all of that. So, going back to the topic at hand, I did go on a bit of a rant about how the prices are rising and how the city was rehabilitated, but this is relevant for two reasons. One is Porto Town Hall is facilitating rehabilitation, and there are a lot of supports such as the rehabilitation areas, so those are called ARRU, Áreas de Reabilitação Urbana, and they give a number of advantage for people who are rehabilitating old buildings. And by old buildings, that means they have to be more than 35 years old, and you have to improve the energy certification on 2 or more levels. If you do it by 3, then you get all the supports. And on that note, some town halls are very complicated when it comes to licensing. Sure, Porto It's not the fastest one. It's a big city and most public services are understaffed. However, Porto is making a good effort in facilitating investment and rehabilitation and construction. So usually things get approved in 6 to 9 months when it comes to licensing projects, and that's a very good thing. So if you are planning to do a rehabilitation project, that is something to consider. We work with this kind of projects a lot, and we get all the budgets and predicted timelines to our clients prior to purchase. A thing that you should know about Portugal is that things are very often late, so always add some extra time to the timelines. I usually tend to do that, but even that way, sometimes we still get surprises. Public services are very ineffective here in some things. So, as I was saying, the prices in the historical center of Porto are right now averaging 4.5, and that's the really center touristic area. This is also because exactly of tourism. Tourism in Porto is a very big thing, and things like alojamento local, so that's basically the regime that is used for holiday housing, drive up the prices a lot. And that is being noticed a lot in Porto, and people are also started to be driven out of their rentals in order to rent to tourists at higher prices. So yes, there's a bit of a cultural imbalance, and it's important to try and do things in a balanced way. So this more or less covers the center of Porto. Like I was saying, you have the main street of Santa Catarina, where there is a lot of commerce and a lot of stores, and then all the way down to Ribeirinha, so that's where the river goes through. And Ribeirinha actually was a fisherman area and one of the poorest areas on Porto back in the day. And nowadays, it's one of the most demanded and expensive areas of Porto because of the view. So that's another fun fact, and it's definitely a very beautiful view. I've done the videos and photographs in the past week, so we're talking early June. And as you can see, the cities are very busy. The streets are very busy, and tourism is already at full-fledged. Then on the immediate surroundings of the center, to the, well, depends on how you're viewing it, but to the right side, you have neighborhoods like Bonfim, Campanha and Fontainhas. This area still has a lot of old buildings falling apart and is only now growing in interest. However, it is a very interesting area from a residential point of view, because you have all kinds of transportation. You still have the metro, you can walk to the center very easily. The streets are very pleasant. There's a lot of streets with trees on them. And once again, these areas used to be bad areas with high criminality rates and prostitution and that kind of thing. However, right now, they are not. And they are being developed, and Porto is expanding. The center of Porto is expanding, and that area is very interesting. I would say that it used to be on 3.5, but as the prices are rising so fast, I would say 4. And it still depends. The best deal to invest in Porto is probably to rehabilitate something older, given that you buy it at a good price and you have someone that can screen, or you have a trustworthy contact to do the architecture and development. That is usually the best way when it comes to price quality. When it comes to new construction, there isn't a lot of new construction on the center of Porto. There is rehabilitation. Some of it is very overpriced, and you have, you know, this typical high ceiling properties with worked ceilings, and there's the very typical architecture of Porto, and you can even find some noble houses with even more classical traits and worked traits. And of course, these are also more expensive to rehabilitate. But overall, I do think that the Bonfim, Fontainhas and Campanha area are very interesting investment areas and are very pleasant from a lifestyle point of view because they are close to everything. You have all kinds of transportation. You have, you know, the metro, the train, there's buses, there's pretty much anything you want. The problem in the center area is that if you want to have a car and if you want to have a garage, that's very, very hard to find in any location on the center. So that's one of the issues of these areas. So to the other side, so to the left side and a bit up, you have the Alfândega area, Marcerelos, Lapa and Marquês. So the Alfândega area is the area right in front of the river to the other side, so to the Foz side. And this area is actually not one of the best because it's once again, it used to be fishermen living, and you have these typical very narrow tall buildings. However, the transportation and accesses are terrible on that area because the streets are very narrow and you don't have subway, and I don't think you will be able to put subway there because everything is on top of each other. So that area is interesting from a touristic point of view, you know, to make holiday houses and hotels and that kind of thing, but not particularly interesting from a living point of view unless, you know, you kind of want to walk everywhere and are willing to not have metro nearby and walk a bit more to get to the bus station and that kind of thing. So a bit further up you have Lapa, and Lapa is one of the churches, the old churches of Porto. The area around Lapa is also very interesting from a living perspective, and you do have subway. This area is not as popular touristic wise because the development here, you have a mix of traditional architecture and newer architecture, but a lot of it, you know, from the 60s to 80s, 90s, so it's not as visually interesting and it becomes less popular for tourists because of that. However, it is very interesting for residential from a practical standpoint, and you have everything nearby. And you also have some areas where you have kind of town halls, really, really small town halls, kind of island-like. So islands is something that is typical from Porto. These actually are usually whole neighborhoods, whole blocks that were built with very small townhouses that used to be used for lodging of factory workers, because it was cheaper for the factory to just buy the plot and make the housing there, and that happened a lot. So you will find a lot of islands all throughout Porto, and some of them are getting rehabilitated, some of them are just getting rebuilt. Some projects have been done from a community standpoint to, you know, have this kind of small houses and create a community around them. So that's another fun fact about the center of Porto. If you go a little further up, so that's the end of Santa Catarina, you have Marquês. Marquês is a square, and you also have a big church there. It actually is a basilica, and I actually know a lot about it because it was built by my great uncle. This is something people tend to be very impressed about, but I didn't know my great uncle, so I know that he built the church and fundraised for the church. He was a very respected clergyman in Portugal. So yes, my great uncle built the church of Marquês. So Marquês is also a very, very nice living area. It's probably the most central location in Porto when it comes to actual center of the urban area. And you have the metro there, and you have all kinds of service and amenities, and you can walk to downtown very easily. So it's a very, very good location when it comes to living. Once again, you have a bit of mix of construction, but it does have predominantly traditional construction, and you are able to find some new construction around this area, so down to Constituição. But I'm not going to talk a lot about Constituição, as I'll probably put it on the other video, as I'll be doing half an hour soon and I didn't want it to be this long. So on my next video about Porto, I will be talking about Constituição, Foz, Ramalde, Paranhos, São João. So those are the outside areas of the city of Porto. I do hope this is helpful. My local agent in Porto is Nuno. Some of you will already seen him on other videos. And if you decide to work with us, I work with all the technical side of things and the networking and making sure everything is on track from a technical perspective and, you know, the legal perspective and so on. And we also have a lawyer on payroll to make sure everything is right, and then the person on the field is my local agent, in this case Nuno. That is the person who will be working with the clients on a daily basis. We always work from a buyer perspective, and we will source the property specifically for the client, both in and out, off market. We have very good networks in Porto and in the other areas too. So we are able to source a lot of things for our clients in that way. If you do wish to work with us, feel free to send an email to contact@savvycatrealty.com. The person who manages the inbox is Katia. She's my administrative. In order to start working with us from a buyer perspective, you have to schedule an advisory call with me. This is a non-binding call where I give you a lot of advice according to your particular situation, and also legal and technical advice when it comes to visas, purchase, renovation, and anything else you need. So this call is paid. It has a cost of 100 euros plus VAT, and that cost is deducted from the package if you decide to move forward. If not, the call is recorded and you get all the information in case you need it in the future for review and to use it for yourself. We also work with rentals. Rentals do not go through me, they go directly to my agents. And we once again work from a buyer perspective with fixed fees. So if you would like to move to the center of Porto, do feel free to reach out. We will be very happy to hear from you, and we are also always happy to see your comments and feedback. And I will be back talking about other cities. Next video will probably be Aveiro, and then I'm going to continue the series in Porto and so on. So lots of things coming, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye!